Y'all, today we need to talk about a problem with stats in Wizard101 that I believe might just be about to get worse. A few months ago, I put out a video talking about what I thought was the best PvE setup in Wizard101. And by best, I just meant the highest damage setup while giving up the least stats. And what a lot of people assumed, right, as people who played the game for years and years, is that the best damage setup would obviously be on the Storm, right? The glass cannon school of Wizard101. But what's crazy is that ever since pins came out into Wizard101, that has not been the case. The best school to run high storm damage on for PvE without giving up too many stats is actually Depth. By using a bunch of, high damage pins, by using the headmaster staff, and by using a storm mastery and storm stats on a pet, you can actually hit the max damage that a storm is constrained to while having way more HP than a storm, while having a ton more resist. We're talking nearly double the resist, and even an extra triangle socket to spare. That is right. You have that much freedom with stats on a Depth compared to Storm when you're trying to get high storm damage. Now, when I made that video, my only, purpose was just to, let people know this is the best setup, but a lot of people brought up an argument here, which is kind of valid. What's the point of being a storm when a Death can just be a better storm? And here's why I think the problem is getting worse. If you've been living under a rock, Walero, which is the next update, the level 170 update, it's going to be introducing a completely new system of jewels, and it's also going to be introducing a themes, rings, and wands that give universal damage. I think both of these will contribute to this issue that people have with, am I choosing a Storm and Fire to be an offensive school, or am I just missing out on just better stats on a different school? The fact that a themes, rings, and wands are going to give universal damage points to a simple problem. Now, instead of just Death being able to be a better Storm, any school can be a better Storm. But that's not where the problem stops. You might have noticed, right? With this setup right now on my Death, I actually have an extra triangle socket compared to, any other person trying to hit 220 storm damage, right? I have perfect pip chance with an extra accuracy jewel, which I can give up, right? If I gave up that 15% accuracy jewel, I'd still have max accuracy. Now, while right now at level 160, that triangle socket, all I'd really do with the PvE setup like this is just put on a blade jewel, I'd put on an item card. In Walero, the jewel on it is gonna drastically change that. Giving up a triangle socket just means that you could replace it with either a square or a circle socket. The lack of stat burden for defensive schools dueling into offensive schools means that they can also give themselves an extra circle socket, which gives them more offense, or an extra square socket, which gives them HP and even more defense to go with the offense that they're outcompeting Storm on. Right now, as a Storm, if you were running a PvE setup and you were trying to run storm damage on a Death, the one advantage that you have on a Storm is that you could do a first turn AoE, right? As a Death, I can't learn Tempest. I can only learn Stormlord, wait around, and still hit as strong as that Storm with more tank ability, but waiting around is kind of serious. But the Walero update is adding cross-trainable first turn AoEs that do a ton of damage, so even that problem will be gone at level 170 if you're trying to hit as a Storm, but not on a Storm. This is all a very, very fancy way of saying at level 160, you definitely have schools that can do Storm better than Storm itself. The Walero update opens that up for even more schools to do, and it makes it easier. And I think it's a really, really interesting debate, right? In my opinion, the reason this matters is not just because of the fact that, I hate cool setups. I literally went through all the effort of making the setup. I actually like that you could, finagle around with gear and just make a way better setup than, what originally existed. But I do think that choices should matter. And at the beginning of a game, when the school description on Storm, for example, tells you this is a super offensive school, people that choose the school should be okay with doing a lot of damage. You get a vibe when you choose Storm and when you quest Storm up. And Storm comes with its own struggles, right? You have low accuracy, you have low HP, you have low tank ability. When you quest through the game or even PvP on a Storm, you feel like there's a choice that has been made, right? You have a lot of offense, it comes at the expense of defense. How good, literally abandoning your original school and going into something that's higher damage per pip like Storm or Fire is, how good that is right now really spits on that choice. This is not just a PvE problem. If you've been PvPing, you might have already seen setups. What I'm running right now on my Death, yeah, it looks like it's just a crazy thing where I could maybe train Stormlord and just, hit like crazy in PvE. This is also just this type of literally abandoning Death to be a Storm. It's just OP in PvP. You can use extremely high damage per pip cards and set up gambits because of your tank ability way better than a Storm could ever do. And an added benefit of it is that, let's say that I'm setting up like a blade gambit like Scion, right? This is a spell that does 2500 damage if you have 4 blades on yourself. If someone were to use the most common, blade counter, these weaknesses that are put on me are based on my original school. Meaning, if I'm basically abandoning my depth identity and becoming a Storm and setting up a bunch of blades, even if someone were to Banshee me, I would still be able to Scion without having a debuff. I just have to keep blading 3 times for every 2 blades that a Banshee removes. You could theoretically just put a bunch of Ellie blades inside deck, abandon death, and just run a bunch of Storm stats, and literally there's no good counter to you other than Earthquake. That's it. And honestly, you have so much tank ability that if someone Earthquakes you, whatever, bro, just like put on a few more blades and try to Scion again. Right? There's no point in doing anything that's death related when you can do that. It's just how it works. The fact that you could already do that at level 160, and the fact that there's going to be even more freedom to do that even more, like with level 170 and the Jewel Audit, I think it suggests that if you are abandoning your original school, there needs to be a valid trade-off for it. Right now, there's no trade-off in PvE. It's truly better to not be a Storm than be a Storm in PvE. That's kind of sad. In PvP, the one advantage you have for not abandoning your original school is, you'll lose your shads when you do that. So if I do that thing where I just spam Ellie blades and try to Storm Scion, I can't really Grim, right? And there's no Rusalkas or any other shad for Storm that I can train. So I lose my ability to do shad, as hits, but the reason that's not a big deal is because these are 2 shadow pips now. So even the one, incentive you had to not, abandon your original school for a second school that you used to have, it's basically, that incentive is gone because shadow spells cost 2 shads to cast now with this most recent update. For all these reasons, the issue is only going to get worse, and I think people genuinely care about this issue a lot. In PvP, there needs to be advantages for your own school to be that school. That currently is disappearing, and it's disappearing fast. And in PvE, when they're adding spells like this that are cross-trainable, that is really cool, but they have to also add spells or other measures that keep your unique school identity intact. Otherwise, the choice you made when you chose a school to begin with matters less and less as time goes on. I think this is a fundamental question that Wiz needs to answer. I think dual schooling should much more be about a primary school and a secondary school than just jumping from one school to another as you want. And I think finding that balance has proven extremely difficult. I don't even know how they would go about fixing this for some of these dual school setups. It's a hard question, but definitely something that I think is getting worse. And I think right here is where I would love for the comment section to weigh in. Do you guys agree with me that this is a problem that's getting worse? And what kind of incentives do you guys think they could add to make it so your main school retains some value? Make sure y'all turn on noties when there is, a live realm update of Walero. I will make a video talking about all the best setups for PvP and PvE, and I will showcase how Storm stats and death stats are vastly different now when it comes to offense. It's kind of nuts. So look forward to that. I look forward to reading y'all's comments on this as well. Drop a like if you enjoyed, leave a sub if you're new, and if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. Stay awesome, see y'all soon, and yeah.